Metroid Prime 4 is officially on the way, guys. This last Nintendo Direct, we saw some gameplay footage. It's exciting because it seems like we've waited an eternity for anything related to Metroid Prime 4. I mean, the game was officially announced back in 2017. It's 2024, and we had enough of waiting. Show us something, Nintendo, and they did. Now, this day and age, when it comes to video games, unfortunately, there's one thing we have to worry about. Is it going to be woke? How sad is it that that's one of the things that we have to find out if a game is woke or not woke when purchasing it? We've seen DEI infect almost every aspect of our media, whether it's movies, music, TV, or video games. Sweet Baby Inc. is one of the biggest culprits out there. Metroid Prime 4 isn't on any kind of consulting firm's games list. So, what a relief, honestly, right? Looking forward to playing the game. I'm not the biggest Metroid fan, but I'm excited for it. Now, just recently, it was uncovered, though, that we dodged a potential woke bullet through Melonie Mac, friend of the channel. Shout out to Melonie Mac. She posted this. So, one of the writers for Metroid Prime 4 has openly said she supported the idea of Samus Aran being transgender before. Now, sigh a little bit, relax. This person was fired a couple years ago, so they're no longer on the project. I don't even think they wrote a single paragraph for this project, so we could be calm about the situation. And rest assured, this Wokey that wanted Samus to be transgender is not involved in the project. But, I mean, you can't be too unsure or sure when it comes to this stuff, because who knows how many people in this gaming industry are as wild as Alyssa Mercante or anybody from Sweet Baby Inc. like Chris Kindred or anybody that's a games journalist. They're all political activists. We've seen everybody from writers to actual community managers to game journalists. They all have this weird woke agenda that they want to force feed into all of us. That's why consulting firms like Sweet Baby Inc. exist. They team up together. If a studio doesn't comply, they write hit pieces on. Nintendo, for the most part, kind of avoids being woke. Yeah, there was a little bit of censorship recently with Paper Mario, I guess, to be less offensive and sexist, but for the most part, they kind of stray away from this whole LGBTQ narratives. There are some speculations and stuff with characters like Vivian in Paper Mario, and then also Birdo, of course, but Samus being transgender is news to me, but apparently back in 94, there was some kind of like translation or statement made by one of the, I guess, artists or people that worked in the game in Japan. So when you think of localization and stuff tends to get mistranslated. But when it comes to Western politics, especially in 2024, a lot of these wokies want to twist stuff and interject and shoehorn in activist stuff, activism, LGBTQ stuff, persons of color, all of the stuff that we are tired of, all the stuff that infects the gaming industry at this point. So Melonie Mac posted this. People told her she was fired, but this is the individual, Megan Fausti, who's also worked on Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Apparently they were writing it, but we could see typical, colored hair. It's either green, blue, pink, purple, you name it. The black frame glasses every time, nose ring brigade. Typical look for the wokies. It's almost like they want to all look the same, androgynous, whether you're male or female, right? But enough about that. There was an article back in 2015 that is part of the whole transgender Samus idea that Megan kind of supported and backed up. It was like this whole article that was off of this website called Mary Sue, which is actually a really big woke website, saying Metroid Samus Aran is a transgender woman. Deal with it. And this was written by Brianna Wu, who actually was in the news recently. I think she actually has disavowed woke progressiveness recently. And Ellen McGrady. I don't know how a dual article works. Does somebody work on half of it and does the other half? I don't know, but this is a pretty cringe article from back in 2015 that you have to go through the Wayback Machine just to access. And it's pretty funny that they are making reference to some kind of a thing from 1994 that I think was obviously mistranslated, but they're pushing this whole Samus is transgender thing in here. And I'm just happy that we avoided it with Metroid Prime 4. If you think about how popular of a game Metroid Prime 4 is going to be, like, this is literally one of the games that people have been waiting from Nintendo for quite some time. If we waited since 2017 for this game to come out and it's filled with woke bullshit and woke nonsense, it's going to be a complete letdown, especially because a lot of people are absolutely tired with it. Now, just some highlights. We'll look at this tweet that shows some highlights from this article so I don't sit here and read all of it, but these people are basically saying that Samus is trans and that it's canon. Get over it. Who cares if the Hirofumi Matsuka said it in jest as a transphobic joke? He still said it, and just let trans women turn his bigotry into something empowering. Metroid 3 is the best trans game ever. If you try to fight me, I'll block you. So look at how childish these people are just to feel represented in video games. Again, like I said, how narcissistic do you have to be to where you have to feel like you got to be relatable to a character in a movie or a video game? Like, oh, I have to feel representative. Like, it's almost like a spoiled brat thing. Now, what they're talking about is that it's a thing that is written in jest because I guess the term in Japanese, it's really hard to describe, but there was a term that we're going to look at here in the article. The writers of the official Japanese strategy guide for Super Metroid, they asked the developers if they could share any secrets about the intergalactic bounty hunter, and Masuka said that she wasn't a woman, but instead what is called a new half. I've never heard that term, but the language has its own issues, but terminology used for gender in the early 90s was as different in Japan as it is in the West. So I guess there's like a weird interpretation. There's not exactly a English translation for that word, what a new half is, but people are comparing the use of new half to she-male, which is looked at as not politically correct, offensive this day and age. Remember, though, this was back in 94, not in 2024 where people were snowflakes about shit. Obviously, this person that was a developer for the game was joking when they called her a she-male. It was more in reference to her being 6'3", 198 pounds in the book. Look in the guide. This thing is here. Most women are not 6'3", 198 pounds. That's like an NFL linebacker size. So that's why he said, oh, she's kind of like a she-male. And in translation, it was probably more along the lines of, oh, she's big and strong like the She-Hulk, right? And yeah, it could be looked at as, oh, it's sexist and stuff nowadays. But back in 94, people weren't pussies about shit like this, They were a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. It's not like somebody was really being offensive. Now, supposedly, according to this article from Mary Sue, says, in the uglier context, new half refers to trans women who have not had gender confirmation surgery, equivalent to Masuka laughing and remarking, yeah, Samus has a dick. Now, he didn't out front say that. I think he's just more laughing in regards to her size. She's 6'3", 198 pounds. She's a strong, powerful character that a lot of people can look up to. She's one of the most courageous, strong characters out there for Nintendo. So, to me, it was just a funny locker room joke that, okay, oh, the wokies are going to sit here and cry that it didn't age perfectly, blah, blah, blah. But apparently people are using this article to try to push this narrative that, yeah, she's transgender, right? Now, this article does go on to say that new half wasn't always used in a pornographic or insulting context, especially in 94 Japan. The term is older and stems from popular use of the term half, which used to refer to Japanese people of mixed race origin. This form of self-identification became popularized throughout the early 1980s. By 82, it had been picked up by the press and was used to refer to transgender performers such as actress and singer-songwriter Rumiko Masabura. So throughout the years, it's changed what it means. Honestly, I don't think that, the original intent of calling them that wasn't because they were transgender. Again, I think it's more of something where now that it's 2024, people that are LGBTQ activists are going to take that, even back in 2015, and try to run with it to make wokies happy, to fill out a checkbox. For the trans agenda, for whatever reason, you have to make your characters trans now. And it doesn't seem like it was as prominent back in 2015, which is why maybe this story went underneath the radar. But you could see this says, looking to negate Masuka's remarks, some gamers have pointed to an FAQ on the Japanese Zero Mission site by Yoshio Sakamoto, co-director of Metroid. He says Samus being a new half is not impossible, but unlikely. Because she's not. It's a female. Others have pointed to Samus' portrayals as a child in Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Other M, and official manga as proof that she's actually a cisgender woman. And you can see that this whole article from Mary Sue starts to get a little political with. This is where we get into the uglier world of cisnormativity and transgender erasure. Or maybe it's just because the character is actually a fucking woman and not transgender. There's nothing trying to erase transgenders by making the character not transgender because it wasn't intended for that. Over the years, Nintendo has slowly altered Samus Divine into a petite blonde with large breasts. I see nothing wrong with that. Finding her sexually attractive, some gamers are flat out uncomfortable thinking about her as a transgender woman. See, this is where they try to go into transphobia and shit like that. According to that Cybean girl, points out on Twitter, many gamers are incorrectly assuming she's cisgender simply from her gender presentation. The truth is, you can't know if someone's transgender by simply looking at them. I mean, what a cringe article. No wonder why you can't find it. And again, this is something that's kind of been floating around the internet that I haven't really seen. I have not noticed it. I haven't seen it. Melonie Mac talking about it, like I said on the original tweet, was the first I had ever seen about it. And again, you can see that it was a article following an article published by Mary Sue. Fausti, who was the writer that almost worked on Metroid Prime 4, tweeted support for this idea and personal belief that Samus is and will be transgender. Talk about dodging a fucking bullet again, because if they supported that, they were definitely going to try to write that in there and shoehorn it in. But I don't think Nintendo would have allowed them to do that, especially for Samus's character being over 30 years old at this point. I don't think Nintendo would be like, okay, Metroid Prime 4, go ahead and write them transgender. But they sure as hell would try to, I guess, make little subtle, I guess, references to it, or try to draw their design to be a little bit more androgynous, because that's what they have to do. They have to uglify female characters like Lara Croft, like, characters that are in games like Stellar Blade. They can't be sexy, okay? We have to have androgynous characters, all right? So make them ugly. Because if they're too hot, it doesn't appeal to that small minority that doesn't want feminine women or masculine men. All right, we have to appeal to a weird gender neutral thing. Now, here's some other tweets that we got talking about this, where this is in response to a Twitter account that literally posts trans women characters of the video game industry, and they said today's bonus trans woman is Samus, and that she's canonically trans. Cry about it. That the developer said in '94 she was trans. Claim it was a joke all you want, but it's canon. And of course, only accounts that @transgirlperday mention can reply, because they know they're going to take a lot of heat when they post stupid shit like that. But this person replied saying, except Nintendo has debunked this and the reasons why. The game's instruction manual refers to Samus as if she were male to obscure her real sex until the surprise reveal at the end of the game. No, Samus Aran isn't trans. And yeah, that's a good fucking point, because if you remember in the OG, we didn't know Samus was a female until the costume, the outfit, the armor is taken off, and then it was like a big, huge surprise. So the manual actually kept that secret, which here's a screenshot from the original manual, and this is a Nintendo fact. The instruction manual of the first Metroid game for the NES uses male pronouns when referring to Samus. This isn't a mistake, as the manual also encourages players to beat the game in under 5 hours, which reveals she's a woman to find her true identity. So this is why it has he. And it's not because they meant for Samus to be a transgender. It's because it was a secret. If you beat the game in under a certain amount of time, you get to find out that Samus is a woman. So it's so funny that stuff like this becomes a topic of debate that people are so passionate about, because they have to see themselves in a character, that it has to be relatable. You can't just have Samus be a great character because they're strong and powerful. You have to put a label on it. You have to make them oppressed or some kind of weird checkbox to make DEI efforts happy. And that's what these people like Sweet Baby Inc. constantly fucking do. And it's tiresome. What happened to just making good games? Metroid is a good game in its own fucking right. It doesn't need DEI injected into it, especially when we're playing Metroid Prime 4 after the trilogy. Metroid Prime trilogy is fucking legendary at this point. Metroid Prime 4 already has some big fucking shoes to fill. If it fails, please don't let it fail because of DEI being forced into it. Please don't let it fail because Samus is going to be transgender in it or some stupid political message in it because all these political activists just want to fucking force and shove wokeness into our fucking goddamn throats. Let it suck because it's not a good game. You know what I mean? Don't let it suck because there's some kind of like weird bullshit injected into it, like other games have started having that bullshit into it. Like, look at Suicide Squad. Not only was that game shit, but it had a lot of wokeness in it. Let games stand and die on their own merit. Let's make some good games. Let's focus on making games with good characters, great stories, great mechanics, great gameplay, instead of focusing on, oh, we need to make sure that this character is a good character because they're gay, and this game needs to make sure that we have a certain amount of persons of color and stuff. So I thank God, and I'm not even that big of a Metroid fan, but I thank God that we dodged a bullet on having Megan be the writer for Metroid Prime 4, because that would have been a disaster. Having to wait this long for a game, one of the most anticipated games I've seen in some time, especially for the Nintendo Switch, come out and have some woke shit inside of it. So thank God Megan isn't involved with it, because they wanted and supported Metroid's protagonist being a transgender female. Whew, we dodged that bullet. So what do you guys think about this? Interesting story that fell through the radar for me. I didn't know anything about this. This was the first I found out and thought it was an interesting read. So let me know down in the comments below. Subscribe if you're brand new. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you guys so much.